Have you ever stayed quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were afraid of saying it wrong? Have you ever watched someone else do something you knew you could do too, but held yourself back just in case you failed? If yes, then you already understand what this story is about. Self-confidence is not the absence of fear. It is not perfection. It is not a gift that some people are born with and others are not. It is a choice, a small, brave choice that has to be made again and again every single day. In today's story, you will meet a man named James, a man who was kind and capable, but who had spent years shrinking himself to fit inside other people's low opinions of him. One day, everything broke apart, and in that breaking, something new began. Stay until the end. This story might just give you the courage to try one more time. In a small village where the roads were unpaved and the mornings smelled of wood smoke and chai, there lived a man named James. He was the kind of man you might not notice right away, quiet in the way that furniture is quiet, always present, never demanding attention. He worked 6 days a week in his uncle's general store, arriving before the shutters opened and leaving after they closed. He stacked tins with care. He swept with thoroughness. He counted change twice, always twice, to make sure it was right. But ask him a question, and the words would slow. A pause would stretch. His eyes would drop, and the person waiting would shift their weight and decide he was not worth waiting for. Simple, people said. Sweet boy, but slow. His uncle said it differently, louder. What is wrong with you? Speak. Look at people when they talk to you. You are a grown man. James heard these things the way you hear rain when you have been wet for so long you have stopped noticing. They settled into him, became part of how he understood himself. Then came the 3 days. His uncle had to travel. He handed the keys to James with the expression of a man who expects disaster but has no other option. 3 days, don't ruin it. The disaster arrived promptly. Day 1, a man came in asking for kerosene. James, flustered by the pressure of being alone and watched, measured it wrong. The man's voice rose sharp and quick. Around them, 2 other customers went still, watching. James stood in the middle of it all, mouth open, nothing coming out. That afternoon, a woman with a damaged tin and a reasonable request. James could not find the words for the return policy because he had forgotten to ask what it was. She left with her tin and her disappointment, and the silence she left behind was worse than the argument. By evening, word had moved through the market the way it always does in small places, fast and without mercy. James is alone in the shop, be careful. And into that unguarded hour walked a man with a gift for talking. Easy smile, confident hands. He spoke quickly about a deal, a previous arrangement, a discount long agreed upon. James, too afraid to ask for proof, too rattled to push back, released 5 sacks of rice and watched the man walk away with them. When his uncle returned and looked at the numbers, his face became a storm. Useless, the word dropped like a stone. Just like always, just like everyone says. James did not argue. He walked out of the shop and kept walking until the village noise faded and he reached the old stone well at the edge of the fields. He sat on the wall and looked into the dark water below. Maybe that is what I am, he thought. Maybe I should stop pretending otherwise. You look like a man arguing with himself. James spun around. James' teacher stood on the path, an old man with slow eyes and a stillness about him that made the air feel quieter. His name was Albert. He sat down on the well wall without ceremony, the way old men do when they have earned the right to sit wherever they like. Tell me, he said. So James told him, all of it, the wrong measurements, the returned tin, the rice, the word his uncle had used, and beneath all of it, the long, quiet years of believing that everyone else knew something he did not, that there was a version of himself that worked correctly, and he had simply never found it. Albert listened until the words ran out. Then he said, "Confidence is not the reward you receive after you stop being afraid. It is what grows inside you while you are still afraid and moving anyway." James looked at the old man. "That sounds simple." "It is simple," Albert said. "Simple things are the ones we find hardest to believe." He paused. "Come to my hut tomorrow morning. I will give you one task, just one. Will you come?" James came. The first task: go to the market, find 5 people, and ask them about their work, what they sell, what they charge, what they love about it. James stood at the entrance to the market for 4 full minutes before walking in. The first woman he approached kept her eyes on her work. He retreated. The second man looked up, seemed to assess him, and laughed, not cruelly, just dismissively, and turned away. James almost went home, but something kept his feet moving. A mango seller, third stall on the left, looked up when James approached and simply waited. His face was open and unhurried. "I sell mangoes," the man said when James asked. "Why do you want to know?" James explained, stumbling a little over the words, glancing away twice, but he explained, and the mango seller, who turned out to have strong opinions on pricing and a deep love for the early morning market air, talked back, generously, enthusiastically. 10 minutes, a full conversation with a stranger. By evening, he had done it 6 times. He had lost count somewhere around person 5 and kept going. Walking home, he noticed something. He wasn't holding his shoulders up near his ears the way he usually did. They had dropped, loose and easy, without him deciding to let them go. The second day brought a gentler task. Stand near the school gate, help children cross, say something kind to each one. James arrived early and stayed late. Watch the road. Good morning. That is a very good backpack. Well done today. Be safe. The children did not question him. They accepted his words the way children accept things, completely and without conditions. And each small sentence offered and received left something behind him, a steadiness, a sense of his own voice as something that belonged in the world. The third morning, Albert looked at James for a long moment before speaking. "Your uncle," he said, "today." James felt his chest tighten. "Tell him the truth," Albert said, "that you failed, that you want to learn, that you are asking, not begging, asking for the chance to do better." He will say no. He might, but you will have stood in front of him and spoken honestly, and that is what matters most today. Not his answer, yours. James stood outside the shop for a long time. He watched his uncle through the dusty window, moving between shelves, straightening things, a man who carried his own disappointments and had learned to direct them outward. He knocked. His uncle looked up. "Uncle," James kept his voice even, "I made serious mistakes while you were gone. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to learn properly, and I want to earn your trust back. I'm asking you to teach me. One more chance." The shop was very still. His uncle looked at him for long enough that James had to resist the urge to look away. "All right," he said at last. "Sit down. Let's start from the beginning." What followed was not easy, but it was real. James learned the return policy word for word. He learned how to count stock, how to recognize dishonest patterns, how to say, "I need to check that before I agree," without apologizing for it. And slowly, like sunlight arriving late to a room with small windows, the change became visible. People stopped walking past him. They stopped talking over him. They began to wait for his answer because his answer, clear, considered, calm, was worth waiting for. One afternoon, a stranger walked into the shop, watched James for a few minutes without being noticed, and said, "You run this well. Are you the owner?" James set down what he was holding. He looked at the man, and he smiled, slowly, from somewhere real. Not yet, but one day. And standing there in the warm light of that ordinary afternoon, in the shop where he had spent years feeling invisible, James believed it. Friends, think about what James built. Not a business, not a reputation, not even his uncle's trust, though he earned that too. What James built was something quieter and more difficult than any of those things. He built the ability to walk into a room and stay, to open his mouth and let the words come out, even when his hands were shaking, to stand in front of someone who had already decided he was not enough and speak anyway, to go back to the market one more time and one more time after that until going back became easier than staying away. That's what confidence looks like from the inside. Not loud, not sudden, not a moment of transformation where everything changes at once. Just a series of small, ordinary acts of courage repeated until they become natural. You have those acts of courage in you. Every time you tried something and it did not go perfectly, but you tried anyway, that was confidence growing. You may not have felt it then, but it was there. Keep going. One step, one word, one moment at a time.